Get off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio Station, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Tiki Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K words here. No Kanye talk now or later. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have topics and guests to that end. If you missed Jerry Jewell last week, she was the first actor with a disability that was on a major series, Full House, if you remember that one. Was so honored to have Charlotte Rae on the show. She actually met Fran Drescher on my show for the first time. That was a wonderful episode, and that was a few months before she went to the other side to heaven. But you'll remember her from that show. Cousin Jerry was the actress Jerry Jewell. If you missed that, go to my YouTube channel's free subscribe and you can watch that again. It houses now, let's see, where are we at? We are at show number 1201. And I think I have to change the consecutive weeks. Yes, we are right now on consecutive week number 640 shows, which 640 consecutive weeks, which is great because they said that this would not last more than a year, and it has. So it's 12 years now. So I'm very fortunate and I'm happy that you are here. And it is Monday. Yes, it's Mental Health Monday Matters. And as you can see, I have a special guest in studio. I'm not going to give you any happy 88 tips today. You have a plethora of podcasts that you can listen to. But I had a chance to bring on someone who actually contacted me after I interviewed, I believe it was from Park Bench to Park Avenue. And she contacted me after that interview. She was very supportive of mental health. She's the co-chair to the Policy Action Committee and policy director for Massachusetts, I can't say that word, at National Shattering Silence Coalition, Uniting for Change in Mental Health Reform. Her goal is to stop the tragedy before treatment system of mental health care in this country. Her name is Laura Craciun. Please welcome her live in studio today. Welcome, Laura. Hopefully we have the sound. Having a little technical difficulty. I couldn't get her on to test. So let's see how we're doing. All right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now better. Thank you. Is there a way to stop your camera from moving?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's set that down. That would be great. Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you.
You're okay. All right. I know you didn't get into test as soon as you could, but I'm sure you're running around doing all of the mental health advocacy stuff as you do. But before we get started, I do an exercise at the top of every show for the last couple of years to sort of anchor us in the way we want our day to go, which is called Breakfast with My Guest. and taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. So, top of the bun is what are things that you're grateful for? And the bottom of the bun is what are things that you like about yourself? Because I believe that mental health starts with self-care, self-love, self-soothing. Because if we don't have that, we're always looking for people in, looking for love in all the wrong places, getting them to approve of us or give us that sense of identity, which a little dangerous because people will change their minds very quickly. Thank you for that finger. Someone just gave me the finger, not that finger, but this finger. Love to have you streaming with us. I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, my station, my main station, as well as streaming on the AM/FM side. This show will go for next week, and we're on a double. You get a double scoop of me. How's that? And my guests. So let's go ahead and get started. What are we grateful for this morning? And if you are streaming, please don't write if you're driving right now, listening on the AM/FM side. But when you get wherever you're going, feel free to write down your gratitudes. I am grateful that I get to live with a view of dolphins and the Queen Mary and cruise ships here in Southern California in Long Beach. Laura, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to have this discussion with many people abroad. I think it needs to be a topic that everyone needs to know about. So I'm grateful for this.
Great. I'm grateful that I've been on this platform for 640 consecutive weeks and feeling it these days. It's more than 10. What are you grateful for?
Oh, also another grateful one. Oh, then I guess I'd be grateful for the Native American people that.
All right. We lost you on that one.
Living with them.
Can you do me a favor and put on Do Not Disturb so that every time someone texts us or calls, it doesn't go blank? Thank you. I am grateful that it is my birthday week. Saturday is my belly button birthday. I am definitely #ageless, so I'm not going to tell you how old I am or how young I am, but I am grateful that I've made one more revolution around the sun. And now we'll go to the bottom of the bun, which is, what do you like about yourself? Because frankly, my dear, if you can't approve of yourself, how the fork do you expect anybody else to? So what do you like about yourself? I'll say that I appreciate my ability to rebound often and much and not let things get me down too long. What do you appreciate about yourself, Laura?
I guess the courage to keep going after I fail or after I have scary things happen to me.
Great. And one more, I appreciate my ability to find humor in just about everything, including myself. So I'm trying to learn how to not take things. I'm a planner. And if there's one thing that just like, I'm trying to, flexibility is not my, flexibility, patience, and tolerance are not big on my vocabulary. So this year for my birthday, no, you know what? I'm not even going to say that because last time I prayed for patience, I got teenagers and I don't want that kind of testing. So I'll just say I appreciate my ability to laugh often and much. How's that? All right, last one for you, or first and last one for you, Laura. What do you like about yourself?
I am a good networker. People are fascinating to me, so I find their good side at the outset, and it makes it easier to connect that way.
Yes, and could you turn up your volume just a little bit? And I will say definitely she's a great networker. She's very persistent too. She's been knocking on my door for a little bit now, but it's worked, and you got a finger for that one. That is a thumbs up. All right, here we go. Thanks for joining us. You are tuned into Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. #1 talk in the IE, and thanks to the Asian Oprah, we are here for 640 consecutive weeks. Thank you for joining us for breakfast. I would encourage you for the next 28 consecutive days to engage in this good life habit, this hashtag Blisscipline, because it will make you start your day in the most positive way. Thanks. All right. I gave you the formal introduction to Laura. I'm going to do my informal introduction. I don't have an answering machine, Laura. I have a questioning machine. And when you call me, it says, "Who are you and what do you want?" So, Laura, who are you and what do you want?
I am an advocate, a mom, a musician, an artist. I have been through a lot, and I wanted to share what I've learned in that journey. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yes. And take me back to your first involvement with mental health.
Well, I was bipolar myself, age 17 on, was not medicated until age 30, and had a large amount of trauma in my 20s because of untreated mental illness. And no one knew, because I spoke well and I presented well and had my music degree from Peabody, but I was struggling with a lot. And now I am a mother to someone who at the same age developed bipolar, but a little worse. He has with psychotic features, a lot worse actually, and lost touch with reality and got in trouble because of his delusions. And I'm now realizing how messed up our system is with the laws and the policies that surround the serious mental illness population with psychosis.
So that's great, and I applaud you for recognizing and also seeing yourself in a way that is it's helpful. It's helpful. I believe the more we have people with mental illness talking about what it is like having a mental illness, because honestly, you can try to walk in someone's moccasins, but if you don't have the actual, if you're not in it, you really don't understand it. We can try to understand it, but it really does take someone who has an intimate understanding with something to really be able to help. And I'm reminded of a guest that I absolutely love, Greg O'Brien, who Pulitzer-winning author, developed early onset Alzheimer's. And he was able to, because he was a prolific writer, write on Pluto, the book, which described in a way that I could understand what it was like to have Alzheimer's. And I believe that's why bad things happen to good people, because we're here on this planet to help each other. First, to have a happy life. Of course, that's my Happy 88 mission. But part of our happiness is the ability to understand ourselves and help others who have something similar. So help me understand what bipolar means for you before we talk about your son, because as you said, you didn't look like you were ill, you presented well, but what was going on inside of you that might help someone listening who feels like there's something not quite, but they can't put their finger on it and they don't really understand it. So help me with that.
I had a very big split from my own voice. I had no idea what I really wanted or liked. So for a long time, people would ask me what I would like to eat or what my favorite color was, and I just didn't know. So I um, became very insecure, and I think the insecurity rolled into emotional turmoil because I just seemed to be getting more and more in vulnerable spots and making bizarre choices that were endangering me. So I, it was difficult at 30 for them to diagnose because there was so much trauma. And I guess the telltale sign is if your child is doing something that doesn't make any sense to you, then, then there's got to be a red flag right there. So,
Mm,
yeah,
right. So when you didn't have a favorite color or favorite food or favorite anything, would you say whatever you want? Or would you say something like really completely strange?
I was
Like, what do you want to eat? And you would say, I want to go to the gym.
I was very mute, so I didn't have the ability to express verbally. I was a musician and an artist that very, very intensely, so I used that to express and didn't really feel the need to talk. So I was kind of inexpressive. So there wouldn't have been no way to put me into a word exactly what my emotions were going, what happens with my mind. So
Mm. And as you said, that affected your insecurity, and then that would shut you down probably even more, so that you didn't want to be visible, which is really interesting because you are way visible. You're very tenacious in your presentation and what you're passionate about, which I applaud. But it really does help me understand, you sort of went from one extreme and then to the other to try to compensate for that time. Is that about accurate? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
it's funny that you're doing that because I would never have put that there. But yeah, I was so insecure when I came back from Romania. I lived there for 3 years. I learned that language and I had an inability to express at work when someone asked me, "How are you?" I was so insecure about that question that I took a communications course, and a college level speech writing course was not the right one to go to either. But eventually, when I did find my voice, it was in my mid 30s. And ever since then, I've been able to speak as clear as a bell, as much as my soul wants to say.
Beautiful. Whatever you just did when you said soul wants to say, can you lean in or whatever that was? Yeah, so we can hear you, because I think it's very valuable what you're saying. All right. So you go through this adjustment, and I'm sorry about the abuse that you had. I'm one of the 7 out of 10 of us who've had childhood trauma, and I believe it is more prevalent than we all give voice to. But I also believe that it's led us to think that there's something wrong with us. But if we're the majority, there's nothing wrong with us. That just means that all of the abuse that we've had was never our fault, but did help chisel us into the power that we are now and the importance of what we are saying. So, just in case you're one of the 7 out of 10, you're in good company. And as Laura demonstrates, when you have a high level of emotional sensitivity, the bad news is it is very unbalancing. The good news is it's very creative. So, highly sensitive people are highly creative, 100% correlation. So I hope you have that as a takeaway as well. And as Laura is expressing, and her music and her art, I'm sure lends itself to that.
And
So,
to continue that thought, I had a very unique experience when I was first hospitalized. The doctor who was behind the Beautiful Mind movie was a friend of our family. So he came to visit me in the hospital, and we sat in a room. And he said, "I don't want you to be ashamed that you have bipolar, because some of the greatest minds in our history have had bipolar, like Beethoven. If we didn't have these people to shape and evolve and push us as humans, then we wouldn't evolve. And so bipolar in that sense is a special gift in that way. Just a matter of
I absolutely believe that, and thank you for reminding that there really is, even in this movement or prevalence of autism, it is my belief, my BS belief system, that every single person with whatever symptoms they have, they're not the diagnosis. That is not who they are, but the gifts that come with that difference is, if we could focus on that versus how they stray from the norm, we'd be a lot better off. So that's my BS. All right, let's move to your son. And so you were undiagnosed for the majority of your life growing up. You got hospitalized. You are, I'm guessing, on medication or managing, and that is the one. I'm not a fan of medication unless it is antipsychotic or anti, the meds that do help with bipolar. And let me just qualify before I get some pharmaceutical companies mad at me again. My whole thing is, I believe that some people are trying to reach for something outside of themselves before they try to reach out for something inside of yourself, so that you can really work with that. And that's when I am against going to the drug first. But certainly, there is a chemical imbalance for people who are chronically schizophrenic, bipolar. There is medication, that's medical science, to help us, right? Just like vaccinations. And I'm going to get somebody mad about that too in a second, but I couldn't help it. Stick that in there. All right. Your son, you had him. I saw the picture of him. Very, very handsome guy. And at what age did you know? Had you already been diagnosed yourself when you sort of could recognize it?
I had been diagnosed when the boys were 2 and 3. So I had already had them. And then when I saw Nick being as sick as he was.
Laura, I'm going to have to, I can't hear you.
Oh boy.
You're very soft.
Okay, so I'm going to speak up louder.
Yes.
Had when they were 2 and 3, I had my diagnosis. So I was on medication throughout their childhood, and I had them both in therapy because I thought they needed, since there was a divorce. And I saw Nick say that there were things that weren't there. So I was worried about him. But the doctors weren't. They diagnosed him with ADHD at 3rd grade, and throughout his childhood just had a very active imagination. So I couldn't tell if it was his imagination or he was actually afraid for a reason, that he was actually seeing something. He would come downstairs from the upstairs and say he saw something up there, and his face would be white. And that was the junior year in high school. So I would say the only thing that would really kick it off was at age 12 or 13, he moved to the city and he started smoking marijuana when he was with his father's, in his father's life. And there was a lot of marijuana to be found there. And when we started seeing bizarre things happening is when, after that point, like we were getting calls from the principal, Nick lit a match. And in the middle of class, or he got into fights, or it was just some trouble now. And I thought maybe that's just children. But when he became a senior in high school, that's when the trouble was more than trouble. It was bizarre trouble. He ran away for 3 days and had been smoking heavily and didn't have any sense when he spoke to his friends. And these were for the whole 3 days that he was missing, he wasn't eating, and he was doing some bizarre activity. We don't really exactly know what, but when he came home, the police were interested in him, and we got him into a hospital for a month, but he turned 18 in that month. So after 18 is a lot of rules where we can't know what's going on with our child because of HIPAA, and we just didn't know how serious he was until 2 years later when he went missing for 3 months. And when he came back, there was no doubt that he had been psychotic and not in reality, and made choices that were too bizarre to explain. So
Can you give me too bizarre to explain? I want to be respectful here, but just to give like one example.
okay, so he was staying with a friend, but it was staying in the friend's car, and he would go with him to work, and he would stay in the car all day while his friend worked, and then stay in the car at night in between the seats hiding, because he didn't want his parents to know he was there. And he told me that he would be able to turn his head to the right and be able to talk to an alien in the passenger seat next to him. And this led on to more and more bizarre things, like going and climbing trees without his clothes on, and climbing mountains to hear the voices better, to understand what they were trying to say for him to do.
Okay. Thank you. That helps a lot. So definitely there's a psychosis side to the bipolar that you were mentioning. I got to work with 18 chronically mentally ill, most important 2 years of my life. When I thought I was going to go get my PhD in clinical instead of organizational. So I did those 2 years as an aide and got promoted up into a manager position. And I will say it was the most important 2 years of my life. And that's why I respect and I want, and I've told you that if I had another lifetime, this would be the topic, because it's such a fine line between health and mental health coming undone. And I'm not breaking laws myself, not mentioning names, locations, but just the experience of working with people who just thought people were and there was no mental illness in the family, woke up in a PhD program pulling hair out and accusing the professor of poisoning them with lead in the coffee. Like that to me is, and the earnestness with which these beautiful individuals that I got to work with, of the reality of that alien on the passenger side, the reality of the president on the TV that was their father, or that going on break at McDonald's and being naked and picked up walking along a freeway picking flowers naked. That is the from like you said, presenting well to there's a break and there's a complete disassociation with who you are and who reality is and what the world is. And the thing that we don't take into account is that for the person that's experiencing that break, it is not weird. It is not unusual. There's nothing wrong with me. And that level of earnestness that's what breaks my heart, is because there is no logic that will help someone in that situation get well, right? We have this BS in our society that You just have to decide that you're going to be okay, and you're okay. And for many people with mental illness, with serious mental illness, can't make that decision. And as you were saying, you are a mom, you see your child in a facility that you're not even able to understand or get the information on what the doctors are saying, because he's 18 and he hasn't signed the release, or doesn't want to, doesn't understand it. So yeah, definitely some policy change needed in that arena. But if you've just tuned in and wondering what's going on in studio today, you are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, NBC News Radio, home to the Asian Oprah. And it is Monday, Mental Health Matters Mondays. We're going to be right back with my very special guest this morning. Her name is Laura Craciun, and she has been giving us an honest and heartfelt and personal experience of herself in mental illness, as well as what her son has gone through. We're going to be right back in 2 and 2. Don't go away, because we're going to talk about how changes need to happen so we can better help those like her son. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And a little station ID there for traffic and news on my NBC News Radio channel. We are here with show number 1201, but who's counting? It is Mental Health Monday. I do have a special guest, Laura Craciun, who tracked me down and wants to bring all of this very important information to us. We are in negotiations now. We may be having a regular series for Mental Health Monday, so stay tuned for that. You know, I normally give Happy 88 tips, and you know that I give a hashtag Asian Oprah giveaway. I will do that today. You still will get an audiobook copy of my #1 bestseller, 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. Just go to my YouTube TV channel, free subscribe, and then go to drmarissa.life, or you can just use my assistant Google, look up Asian Oprah. I was actually introduced to Oprah as the Asian Oprah. I didn't make this up. So I would love for you to have an audiobook copy of that. It's for people who want to be happier than they are. And before you do reach for some kind of a drug, it is possible to first use your most powerful tool in life called choice to look at some things that might be biting your proverbial assets. But if you know that it is more than what you actually can will into place, and you have some of the symptoms that Laura has been wonderful to share about herself. I didn't realize that that was one of the symptoms of, if you ask yourself, what if someone asks you, how are you? Like, that's a difficult question to answer. That's a really good symptom for people who are maybe experiencing that, or not knowing what your favorite color is, definitely not knowing who you are. So, and then your son, I'm just recapping for those who just joined in. Thank you for streaming with us. Feel free to use the comments to ask questions of Laura. Her son, more and more bizarre. You mentioned he started smoking pot, which I know that you also are investigating or involved in how marijuana is what we seem to think is not a big deal, legalized, can kind of chill you out and just make you more relaxed. So if you are experiencing dis-ease of any kind, it sort of helps you. Your real experience with your son is that is not true. That is a BS, a belief system that has to be challenged go there with me for a minute.
Okay, the medical marijuana that everyone thinks is so safe is, there's a pure of THC and a pure of CBD. The pure of CBD is actually good for epilepsy, and there's some real calming effects for trauma. And I'm not sure what science is going to do with that, but the THC, which unfortunately, even if it says it's just CBD in the stores, usually has traces of THC on a brain developing, especially under the age of 30, could trigger, even with a few puffs, an episode that will trigger a lifelong disability. So there is no label on these products that then there should be. And I know this because I suffer watching my son now, and there is no marijuana in his system anymore, and he has one of the worst bipolar cases I've ever seen. The latest doctor called it schizoaffective. So when you see people acting paranoid, that's a first sign there's some psychosis there. That person shouldn't smoke marijuana. There are just some people that should not smoke THC, especially before age 30. But in general, even an adult, if they start having delusions of paranoia, especially. So if you are young and you're watching this, I hope if you see your friends be acting tweaky, they call it, or looking in strange ways or saying strange things, especially for hours and days after they've smoked, they have to be brought to the attention of parents, teachers, doctors. It's not something you should leave them. I know Nick's friends have reached out and said they feel really bad not saying something to us sooner. Because they did notice the same marijuana they were smoking made him do something different than they experienced. And when we got to our second forced hospitalization, he was in a marijuana-induced psychosis, and it was so bizarre, and it lasted for so long that the doctor had said if he smokes marijuana again, he's going to have treatment-resistant bipolar with psychotic features and never be cured. And that was the first time we'd even heard that marijuana was dangerous. So the shock was, I've had 2 shocks. That was one, and I'll explain the other one later. But that's something that I don't think many parents are aware of. And Johnny's Ambassadors is trying her best. It's Laura Stack's group in Colorado, the ground zero for legalizing marijuana. She does all these, she trains 100 people to go out into schools to teach this, and PDF flyers, also smart approaches to marijuana. Another group deals in policy, trying to get policies that are around banning the use for kids. It's just, we don't want to criminalize it because it's already the mental, serious mental illness population is getting into the criminal justice system far too quickly and easily, and with huge consequences, lifelong. So I don't know if criminalizing is it, but we at least have to have that awareness out there, that the parents know, the kids know, because they're making a risk benefit analysis themselves without having the actual knowledge of the risk.
Yeah. Give me the name of the 2 groups again so I can put them in the chat.
Sure. There's Johnny's Ambassadors, with JOHNNYAMBS. I don't know.
Okay, Ambassadors.
Yeah, and
this is
in
Colorado?
Right, but it's nationwide. And the other group is SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, which he focused on. So they're different purposes, but they're both trying to spread that word about THC of it for people under the age of 30, where their brain is developed.
Okay, I'm going to pop these up on the screen as well, and then put their the website.
There's other groups as well. There's Parents Opposed to Pot. I mean, if you just Google it, there will be places where you can go to find more information. Johnny's Ambassadors, as an advocacy group, they have the most research and printable PDFs for your school, and they just set it up well for us to educate kids.
So that's really good solution. You know, I love to bring solution on this show. So we're not just like talking about the problem endlessly, but there are groups already that are doing something in all of those areas that Laura is bringing to us. So there's events, hashtag THC free. And again, I want to highlight and make sure we're not saying that we want to go back to when it was not legalized. And as you mentioned, these horrific sentences for a crime that is not really a crime. Here's the other one. This is smart approaches to marijuana.
We're with how the edibles are being sort of advertised as Oreo cookies, or something that your child could pick up, and there's so much more reporting of young children accidentally swallowing edibles and having non-stop vomiting. It's becoming common, and there's nothing now, not even the medications calm it down. So these are huge for kids. Never mind what could be happening in the brain. Alcohol hurt the liver, tobacco hurt the lungs, THC hurts the brain, which is such a more disabling illness or side effect than the other two.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot more evidence and research. Already in England, it was well known. So we're just catching up now.
Right. And again, it's the balance. It's not the, it's not one extreme to the other. Balance is always the answer. So we have to get to that point where we understand the impact. And what Laura's bringing us here, I had no idea that it actually affects your brain. Well, I mean, it's, how they say stereotyping, but there's always a little bit of truth. And it has been my experience that people who do a lot of that just don't seem to be the brightest crayon in the box. And so that explains the impact of that drug on your brain.
Well, it's crazy because there's two parts to it. CBD, which is calming, and THC, which is a psychoactive. And the THC part is the one that is the most dangerous for us that we know so far in the research, because, even without any family history of schizophrenia, you can develop schizophrenia from a cannabis-induced psychosis, which is lifelong debilitating. And if we can prevent that, why not? Because once you're there, there's no taking it back.
Yes.
And so there's something else I want to bring up is anosognosia, which is a word that it properly describes what happens when you have a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar with psychosis. On the extreme, 50 to 60% present with zero ability to know they have the illness. So what they're seeing, they believe is real, and there's no one that's going to tell them it's not real, or that they need to help with that illness. So anosognosia is something I'm hoping will be put in the DSM. It's there currently under Alzheimer's. It needs to also be under schizophrenia, so that we can separate ones that are able to handle the illness on their own versus the ones who are really literally not going to advocate for themselves. Because there's two things that happen. One is when Nick, the first shock I ever had was when we brought Nick after he had come home from being missing 3 months, very skinny, and we brought him to the ER. He had been in such trouble for 3 months, missing and starving. We brought it to the ER expecting them to have a full psych evaluation, and they denied us. And they said, well, yes, he may be crazy, but he's not a harm to himself or others right now. I said, well, what is taking your clothes off in February, going up trees to talk to voices? That was February. But I mean, it was so that was the shock of the reality of the system, how broken it is. The second shock was being told that he's going to be criminalized for for an act done during psychosis, because there are no laws that protect the mentally ill. When you have someone do something in an act of psychosis, you are blamed as if you did it. And you just tried to get them the help, and they denied it. And there's just something so warped about that. So I'm trying my best to find a solution, and the solution is AOT. The only way that we can solve the mental health crisis in this country is if we combine the legal system, the social system, and the medical system all in one team when you're dealing with someone that sick. If you're not talking to each other, you may have a great legal system, great teamwork, a great teamwork for the social system, a great teamwork for the medical. But until they're all talking to each other, they're not getting the full care of that child or that young adult. So that's where I'm advocating AOT. And if we can really fine tune it after it's in 50 states, then the federal funding that would be provided for an AOT after hospitalization would be something that they could really make strict and make it work right and unified throughout the country. So that's what I think is a solution.
Lots to think about here. And I do love the multiple pronged approach. I'm a systems theorist. I think that part of our issues in America are many are Newtonian theories, which is, what's the problem and what's the one solution, right? There's no crossover or no, what's wrong with welfare? Well, or what's wrong with homelessness? We got to do this one thing, but it's never about the one thing. There's like so many different areas that we have to address in order to make that thing work, right? There's multiple symptoms, multiple sources, multiple treatments. And so that's what why I invited you on the show. I love the systemic nature of your solution. Now, can you say what he's being criminalized for?
Oh, he has had 5 charges, 5 cases in 5 separate courtrooms since the psychotic break where he was gone for 3 months. They were mostly thefts, some breaking and entering, some assault with a deadly weapon was the last one with his father. So that was a new one. He had never been violent up until December of 2023.
Yeah. So, and I asked this because the recognition that, and it's funny, I started with that, when someone is in that state, they do not believe that they are doing anything wrong, right? They don't believe that there's anything, right? Go ahead. What were you saying?
He thought he was defending himself. He thought his life was in danger.
Okay.
So.
Right. So as I was mentioning earlier, to assign blame or to assign responsibility instead of treatment, that's the crime. I'll just say that. So not saying that it is you're allowing everybody, and this is what we do as Americans. We go from one extreme. Oh, are you saying that, anybody can claim that they're and then do anything? No, that is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is the solution that we've got right now isn't working. So throwing people into jail because they do something horrible during a psychotic break is not helping. What does help is a multi-pronged solution, getting the systems working together to understand. We still don't even really understand. Now, before we run out of time, you met and have been in discussion with someone who had a special on HBO or Netflix. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
The 12-member family that was the subject of Hidden Valley Road and the HBO Max series Discovery Plus series, Six Schizophrenic Brothers, Lindsay Roche, has tried her best to repair the damage that those two stories that came out about her family has, because she was trying to really be educational when she agreed to narrate that documentary that was 4 parts about her 6 schizophrenic brothers and how much her mother and father tried, and they were so cultural and they had good moments. They just didn't go through that enough, and they sort of dramatized all the violence. They were 2 or 3 episodes a. So she wanted to clear the air, and she also said that nobody talked about the educational opportunity to say what anosognosia is and how it is the biggest obstacle to getting help for the parents, for the kids. You know, they don't know they're ill. The parents are trying to tell the professionals they're ill, and it's not to do with anything intellectual. It's just a disability, like any delusion is, like Alzheimer's. So she was very unhappy that was an opportunity missed. So she.
Yes. Yeah, that's what happens with Hollywood, unfortunately. I remember interviewing from Tiger Kings, the woman. My recall's horrible, but she also, Tiger Kings was not supposed to be about this, the conflict between the two of them. It was supposed to be about what was happening to the tigers. And when it didn't turn out to get the funding, like the Cove, who I also got to interview, and Blackfish, that was how it was supposed to be. Then they went after and sensationalized this whole thing with her. And it's, that is Hollywood. It is unfortunate. We're going to try to make this series work and have her come on to really give the necessary and needed focus and highlight. Nicole, she's my family from Doors of Change. She's the lead case manager. They do brilliant work taking homeless off of the streets of San Diego. We just had a fabulous fundraiser. She says, thank you for speaking about this. It's hard to bring these things to the surface. And I'm sure, Nicole, that you have had experience with people that have gone through the you got to learn how to say this. Anosognosia. How's that? Who don't know, they're homeless and they don't even realize, the things that they're doing. If they're smoking, as we have heard, it can be damaging and bring you into psychosis where there is no history of psychosis before. So hopefully you've heard those primary messages. I do want to give Laura, I don't give all my guests this, but you certainly have taken all of your painful experiences and brought light to an area that needs it. And especially for not just your son, but all, and the sister of the 6 schizophrenic brothers who are doing so much. And if I don't meet her, this is for her as well. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. You get Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you.
We are coming up against the end of the show. It went fast. I knew it would. Final word. What is it that you really want? How does someone educate themselves more? How do they get involved? How could they help?
Well, the biggest way to help is to Google and try and find more research about anosognosia, about why, there are people out there that are homeless and in jail or circling in and out of hospitals 30, 40, 50 times with no effect. There is a reason, and AOT would stop that. We could really fine tune it. After Kennedy said in his lecture, we're at a point in legislation where we can do something to reboot the mental health system. And I'm hoping we can join him in that advocacy.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm just copying a couple more of these so we have it on as a official on the show. This is
It's another one that I wanted to mention. They've helped
which
me.
one?
National Shattering Silence has helped me from the beginning. Also, Schizophrenia and Psychosis Action Alliance. There are so many advocacy groups. Team Daniel running. There are so many groups that are now doing great work. Arizona Mad Moms. They started a real big movement, and I'm hoping we can all pick up on what they started.
Arizona Mad Moms.
Yeah, they.
Okay. And then what was the one that's been through with you since the beginning?
National Shattering Silence Coalition.
National Center.
Shattering the silence, like making
Shattering the Silence. Oops.
National
Coalition.
Coalition.
Okay. Just use my assistant Google. Look up mental health advocacy. Look up Laura Craciun. She's on social media, so you can find her, encourage her, support her, and we're looking for sponsors for this new series. If you are interested in being a part of that, just contact me, and we'll make sure that this gets on the map. And is part of the solution. All right, this is what I do at the end of the show. Peace in. You can join me in the sign out. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. Now go and have the best day ever. Thanks, Laura. See you tomorrow. It is Tuesday Talent. I have a special guest. Come and see who it is. We'll see you tomorrow.